Not long after the first globe-circling voyages of Magellan, Westerners appeared on the shores of Japan. Dutch, English, Portuguese, and Spanish traders came to ply their trade in Japanese ports. Both Spanish and Portuguese missionaries sought to establish Christianity in Japan. Before the Tokugawa government sealed off Japan from the West, the Japanese had ample opportunity to observe white men for the first time. In these early contacts, the Portuguese and Spaniards were called Nanbanjin or Nanban, meaning southern barbarians, words adopted from the Chinese who had names to designate all the inferior savages living to the north, south, east, and west of the Middle Kingdom. The Dutch were called Komojin or Como, red-haired people. Nanbanjin is spelled Nanban with a dash Jin. And I am TB Wahid, by the way, in Black Living Room Talk. And I am reading Hiroshi Wagatsuma's The Social Perception of Skin Color in Japan. In several of the colored pictures of the day, that included both Japanese and Europeans. The Japanese artists painted the faces of the Portuguese, Spanish, and Japanese men in a flesh color or light brown, but depicted the faces of Japanese women as white in hue. In a few other pictures, however, some Portuguese are given white faces like Japanese women, while other Portuguese are given darker faces. Seemingly, the Japanese artists were sensitive in some instances to some form of color differential among the foreigners. Many Portuguese and Spaniards were actually not so white-skinned as Northern Europeans, and after the long sea voyage to Japan, they undoubtedly arrived with rather well-tanned skins. The Dutch in the pictures, on the other hand, seem to be given invariably either gray or white faces, when contrasted with the Japanese women near them. The Japanese feminine face is painted a whiter hue than that of the Dutch. The differences between the Japanese and the Europeans in these old prints are clearly depicted in hair color and facial characteristics. The Portuguese, Spaniards, and Dutch are all taller than the Japanese and are given somewhat unrealistically large noses. Their double eye folds and their bushy eyebrows and mustaches seem slightly exaggerated. The Portuguese and Spanish hair is painted brown, although a few are given black hair. The Dutch hair is usually depicted as either red or reddish brown in color. Written and pictorial descriptions indicate that the Japanese were more impressed with the height, hair color, general hairiness, big noses, and eyes of the foreigners than with their lighter skin color. Some pictures include portraits of the Negro servants of the Portuguese and Dutch. The faces of Negroes are painted in a leaden or blackish gray, and their hair is shown as extremely frizzled. The physiognomy of the Negroes is somewhat caricatured and in some instances closely resembles the devils and demons of Buddhist mythology. Is that right? Now, why would that be? Why would they be resembling that of devils and demons of Buddhist mythology. Okay, let's check this out. Some Japanese scholars of Dutch science seem to have had a notion that the black skin and frizzled hair of Negro servants were the result of extreme exposure to heat and sunshine in the tropical countries in which they were born. In 1787, such a scholar wrote of what he had learned from his Dutch friends about their Negro servants. These black ones on the Dutch boats are the natives of countries in the south. As their countries are close to the sun, they are sun-scorched, and become black. By nature, they are stupid. Okay. The black ones are found with flat noses. They love a flat nose, and they tie children's noses with leather bands to prevent their growth and to keep them flat. Africa is directly under the equator, and the heat there is extreme. Therefore, the natives are black colored. They are uncivilized and vicious in nature. Okay. So they're saying that the black people were uncivilized and vicious in nature. Well, what was the transatlantic slave trade? The black people were not if they were uncivilized. As far as uncivilized means, they were doing their own thing. They had their own culture. You know what I mean? And in which what they were doing was normal to them. Okay? So, in vicious, maybe as far as hunting for food, maybe. But as far as hurting people, no. No. Another scholar wrote, black ones are impoverished Indians employed by the Dutch. As their country is in the south and the heat is extreme, their body is sun-scorched and their color becomes black. Their hair is burned by the sun and becomes frizzled, but they are humans and not monkeys, as some mistakenly think. Okay, so he changed it up and said, no, they are humans and not monkeys, as some mistakenly think. After the closing of the country by the Tokugawa government in 1639, the only contact of Japanese with Westerners, aside from the Dutch traders, would occur when shipwrecked Japanese sailors would occasionally be picked up by Western ships and taken for a period to a Western country. The reports about the English, Russians, and Spaniards made by these Japanese sailors upon their return commented much more on the hair and eyes of the Occidentals than upon the color of skin. In 1853, Commodore Perry of the United States Navy came to Japan with his black ships and forced Japan to reopen her ports to foreign vessels. When Perry visited Japan for the second time in 1854, there were 2 American women on board. It was reported in a Japanese document. On board is a woman named Shirley, 31 years old, and her child Loretta, 5 years old. Their hair is red, they have high noses, white faces, and the pupils of their eyes are brown. They are medium in size and very beautiful. I'm going to stop right there today. So this was the I don't know if this is the set. I'm organic, so I don't know if this is. I'm just going on, but I know I'm on page 414, and we're gonna be the next time I read is gonna be talking about the portraits of Commodore Perry. It's interesting That's what drew me to this book. It's interesting how it goes into great detail about really what is thought about the colors, complexions and hair, and how people went to great lengths to look white, as is what's happening in India and Africa today, where the women are bleaching their skin, and this stuff is poisonous. It's really sad, and I hope that it stops. But we have a lot of work to do, and we have to continue to teach the kids, and we must continue to gain knowledge of ourselves. There's too much information out here, and too many people putting it out to not gain knowledge. Until next time, peace, love, and light.